Welcome to another athlete story. I'm Julie Hatfield, still president of Beyond the Game Alliance. We are a nonprofit organization taking a proactive and holistic approach to moving athletes from competitive sport to career and life beyond their game. This is such a critical transition and can be one where many students just feel isolated. It can often be turbulent, and I believe it's way under discussed. So, as an organization, we want to bring awareness to this space. And one of the best ways, and one of my favorite ways to do this, is for us to bring other athletes into the game to share their stories with us. With that said, I am so honored to introduce former Division I basketball player, go Clemson, board chair for Kids Gym USA, national advertising sales manager for Comcast, former collegiate basketball coach at High Point University, and of course, an inspiring and clearly ambitious athlete, Morganne Campbell. Morganne, welcome to the room.
Thank you. Thank you. What an introduction. I'm definitely happy to be here.
Yeah, well, I am thrilled to dig in with you and just learn more about you and your background and your story. And to get started, I mean, you have had such an impressive journey in athletics and beyond athletics, but if you can just take us back and share a little bit around your background in sport and some of your greatest accomplishments, and really what got you started and moving you towards competitive play at the higher levels.
Yeah. So my journey starts years ago with Kids Gym USA, a nonprofit organization that I'm the board chair of, which my parents founded in 1986. I started as a gymnast. I grew up in the gym. I lived and breathed gymnastics. And so I got into competitive gymnastics and actually was pretty good. Was vault champion, I believe, on level 6. And then, as I got taller, my dad was like, let's look at things a little differently now. Let's expand our view on gymnastics is definitely your love, but let's think outside the box because let's be real, there is definitely a size type when it comes to gymnasts, right? And so me being a 5'8" basketball player, I didn't really fit into that box. So from that moment on, we decided to look beyond gymnastics because gymnastics is such a good springboard sport into whatever else you want to do. So I picked up a basketball. Seventh grade, eighth grade, middle school, and I was not good at all. At all. I definitely remember those days. And it wasn't until there was a neighbor. I had a neighbor who we had a really good connection, and he was always playing basketball. And so I was always playing with him outside. And one day he was like, "You should really try out for the team." And I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, try out." I was heading into high school at that time. He told me to try out for varsity. I was like, "All right." So I tried out and I made the team. And so from that moment on, I was like, "All right, let's do this." Because I've always been a competitor. I've always loved being active and I always loved sports. So I took this on as a new challenge. And I started working hard, playing all the time, and then started getting playing time. I was like, wow, this could really be something. But it wasn't until my junior year of high school where my dad was like, okay, let's look at this seriously. Like, do you want to play at the next level? And I credit a lot to my father because he was actually a collegiate athlete himself. So he was from the University of Illinois where he played football. So he understood the importance of making a decision and working hard and trying to see beyond just your high school playing field and envisioning yourself beyond that. And so we really started taking time and talking about and envisioning what I wanted to do next. And I put in the work with that too. And I was able to receive a full basketball scholarship to play at Clemson University after that.
Wow, Morganne. Now I'm even more inspired because you quite literally didn't pick up a basketball competitively until your high school years and middle school years. And I mean, this day and age, that's practically unheard of, right? They're 5 and 6 year olds and they already know they want to play Division I, right?
Right.
So I just love that. And I love hearing about Kids Gym USA and how getting those foundational skills that you had really did just completely amplify the ability and skill set in basketball. It's amazing and inspiring because, I'd love to talk about not only just the transition from that competitive sports, but the challenges you came up against as a competitive basketball player at the Division I level. Um,
Mhm.
what challenges did you face in your athletic career that has made you Morganne Campbell, who you are today?
Hmm, that's a good question because being a collegiate athlete, everybody views it as so amazing. And it is. It is amazing, but it is hard. So I would say, 4 years was challenging. I don't remember, there ever being an easy moment. I remember I remember my friends leaving for Thanksgiving and my friends being gone for summer, and like I am on campus with two a day some days, or I'm on campus because we have a game coming up. So I would just say keeping myself organized. Time management was a real thing. And so, you're balancing a lot as a collegiate athlete. You're balancing full load of schools because that is your number one reason as to why you're there. So full load of hours, study hall, reserving your body, preserving your body. So you have treatment, you have weight training, you have conditioning. And then on top of that, practice or games, and then film after the fact. And then on top of that, study hall. So for me, it was making sure that I structured out my day, because if I didn't, that was going to be a challenge in itself, making sure that I took care of all of my classes, ate, made it to workouts or practice, and then made sure I did all of my homework after the fact. And then as on top of time management, I would just say making sure that I kept up with my body. It's a lot to be a collegiate athlete. And so it was challenging for me to stay healthy sometimes, stay healthy. And I'm not even talking about serious knee injuries because I had a few of those, but I'm talking about just catching the flu or strep throat because you're running your body down all the time. And so I didn't really take into effect what my parents always, instilled in me as a child was like, take your vitamins, eat your vegetables, drink lots of water. And that really showed true when I got to college. Those things are extremely important. And so once I got through the whole freshman year of college, wanting to do things on my own, I really had to buckle down and be like, okay, everything that they told me back then was important. I have to take my vitamins, I have to eat well, and I have to drink my water to make sure that I maintain and stay healthy. So just making sure that you manage your time, you take care of your body, but also take care of your mental too. That is a thing as well. Making sure that you keep this up here positive and always looking for, looking towards the future, working hard, but also staying in the moment. So it's a lot. It's a lot being a collegiate athlete, but it can be done.
Yeah. I love you just sharing that kind of full glimpse of what's required and what was required for you to really excel as a collegiate athlete and work through the challenge of just having those kinds of schedules and that regimen. And I'm sure in some ways it also served you to have that
Mhm.
structure. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that, Morganne. How did, even though there were a lot of challenges and it was hard for those 4 years, how did that equip you for who you are today?
Wow. So I attest my my whole sports career to who I am today. I always say this because getting into the position that I was in now here at Comcast, I had to beat out a lot of people to get to this position. But you know, one thing that I've always, when people ask me that question, and one thing that I truly believe and stand on is that those 4 years at Clemson University were probably the most physically and mentally taxing 4 years that I will probably go through in this life. And I came out on the other side. So I like to believe that I survived. I like nobody will outwork me. I survived, and I not only survived, but I excelled during probably one of the four like most hardest 4 years of my life. And so that with that, behind me, I know nothing, anything ahead of me cannot stop me. Like I had that mindset that like nothing can derail me, nothing can impact me because I've already done something that's been pretty amazing and hard at the same time. So just knowing that and I keep that mindset every day as I move forward is like nothing. Like I can get past anything at this point because I went through that.
Yeah. You know, adversity is what
Mhm.
sharpens our resilience, right? It builds our
Yeah,
resilience. And I really hear that you've been able to walk that out and it's really just sharpened you and even quite possibly perfectly positioned you for what's next,
yeah,
whatever that is. And we like to, we believe that at the Alliance that athletes are perfectly positioned for whatever is coming for them because of their athletic career.
exactly,
So
exactly.
let's talk a little bit about when you started to step away from competitive sport. For you, Morganne, was that a challenging time for you? Was there some turbulence, or was it something that you were so ready for and ready for that next step? I'd love for you to just share your experience around that transition for you.
Yeah, that was a challenging time for me. So, for 4 years, my life was structured out every single hour, every single minute. And once it was over, I had to come to grips with that. One, I was no longer basketball player Morgan, and I had to figure out who I was outside of the sport. And that was tough. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know who I was. All I knew in that moment was basketball. And so I had some moments where, I moved back in with my parents. I didn't know. I didn't know what was next. I actually started working for kids gym. I was just doing things that I thought like I should be doing, but not really realizing that I wasn't feeling fulfilled at the time. And it wasn't until my dad sat me down one day because I was really at a low point. Not really knowing what's next. A lot of my other college friends who weren't athletes had secured all these amazing internships or secured these amazing jobs because their focus was somewhere else. Mind you, my focus was definitely academics, but being an athlete, you always want to take that next step, whatever that next step is, right? Professionally, overseas. And when that didn't pan out for me, I didn't really know who I was. And so it wasn't until my dad sat me down after I'd probably been living with him for about 6 months. And he was like, "So I think you should give the athletic director at Clemson a call." And I'm like, "What? Me? No. Like, why would I do that?" And he was just like, "You gave 4 years to that university. For sure, he would take your call and just go talk to him. Open up, like, see if he knows anybody, if he's connected. Is there anything that he talks about that sparks your interest?" And so I sat on that for a while because I was like, absolutely not. And the athletic director at the time was Terry Don Phillips. And so when I had nothing else going on, I said, you know what, I might as well try. So I gave him a call and I went up to Clemson to meet with him. And I'm so glad I did. That conversation opened up so many doors for me. And I was just able to talk to him as a former athlete, pick his brain, figure out, his relationships, his connections. And after I left that meeting, I left with two things. One, he told me he wished more athletes did that. He wished more athletes would come and talk to him. And then two, I left with an internship with the Orange Bowl committee by just a phone call. So that really, put me on a different path because I was definitely not myself and trying to figure out who I was and trying to understand my worth and trying to figure out who Morganne is outside of the love of the game of basketball.
So inspiring, and love that you took that bold action. And I want to just circle back to what if you had to go back and obviously we can't, right? But we we here we're always saying, I wish I knew then what I know now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're teaching and giving resources to our athletes that we know now that we can give them now, um,
Mm-hmm.
when we didn't necessarily have them. In that period, Morganne, what do you think would have helped you maybe discover, even if a little bit quicker, right? Or bought you some speed in
Mm-hmm.
discovering who Morganne was beyond the game and her talents, her skill sets, and what was next for her. Is there anything that comes to mind that would have been really helpful for you in that space?
Yes. I wish I would have known then that I was more than just an athlete. And I feel like if that would have clicked for me then, I would have made different decisions academically. I would have maybe, pursued that internship after, during the summer, when I don't have any games or we're not in season. I would have pursued, creating relationships outside of the sports world, because there is life beyond sports. And actually, your life beyond sport is a lot longer than your life in the sport. And if I had known that then, I think my mindset would have been different coming out of college. Because you're more than just an athlete.
Yeah. 100%. The sport, it's our distribution channel for our talents, our skill sets, and abilities, right?
Exactly.
So if we can, the reason why you're a Division I athlete is because you're massively talented, you're probably committed, you're dedicated, you show up when others don't, right? There's some key innate abilities that have nothing to do with the sport that helped you become great at your sport.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I heard you mention kind of the power of networking and community and reaching out. I know many of our athletes, there's some fear around that, around kind of like you said when speaking to the athletic director, like you waited on it for a little bit. Do you have any insight for our athletes who are kind of in that space of like, do I reach out? Do I make this connection? How do I get outside the fold of athletics and expand my network? Any thoughts around that, Morganne?
Yes, I would say in that moment, use the fact that you're an athlete, because everybody loves to connect with and talk to athletes. Everybody loves that, so use that. Let that be your driving tool to create relationships outside of the sport.
I love it. And that play to your strength. Play to your strength.
Definitely. Use it. I mean, it's a pretty cool thing. Not everybody can be an athlete on any level, Division I, Division II, Division III. That percentage of a person is very, very small. So people want to connect with you. People want to talk with you. They want to hear those stories, and use that as a leveraging tool to get what you need out of it. And that's a relationship, whether it's a phone number, whether it's a contact, an internship. Use that.
Yep. Morganne, one last question before I want to kind of toss the baton to you for any advice for our student athletes you may have. Looking back, when do you think it's beneficial to start the conversation of actually looking beyond the game? Do you feel like in high school, our student athletes should be starting this conversation of like, hey, it's going to end. Here's how you prepare. Or is it a little bit later, especially if they go into college years and college play? Any thoughts around that?
I would say probably college, right? Because high school, you're focusing, especially if you're thinking college, that's your goal. And that should be your goal, right? That should be your love. That should be your goal. That should be your focus, right? And then you have 4 years from there. I would say in college, that's when you should really start thinking about who you are beyond the game. Think about what you like outside of basketball or volleyball or football. What excites you? What are you passionate about outside of your sport? And use that to help you drive your mindset around what or who you could be beyond the game that you love.
Yeah. Any thoughts on those athletes who are going to hang up the jersey at the end of their high school careers? When should they start considering, hey, I need to be looking and networking outside of athletics?
Yeah, I would say probably junior or senior year, from that point on, talking and connecting with people to figure out what interests you, what would you like to study in, or what university you would like to go to. So I would say junior year is probably when you need to start having those conversations and those thoughts and connecting with those where you want to be, connecting with those that are where you're trying to go to.
I love that. Yeah, if we're really taking that proactive approach, right? We're not waiting to the last 2 weeks of the season in our senior years to figure out, okay, what's next and who am I now?
Exactly.
Well, as we wrap up today, Morganne, I've just loved spending time with you and really digging into your background and solid advice already. Any advice or strategies to leave here on the table before we sign off today?
Sure. I would say, what would I say? I would say, especially for you athletes, right? We have in our mind, because we're structured, because we're organized, because we work hard, we have a vision, we have a plan, right? And sometimes it doesn't work out that way. And be okay with the fact that sometimes your life does not unfold the way that you envisioned and the way that you planned. And go with that flow. Ride that wave. Be curious, be intentional, be open. And just know that at the end of the day, it is all going to work out the way that it's supposed to.
Be curious, be intentional, be open. I love that, Morganne. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your story. It's so inspiring. And I know that whoever watches this today is going to either walk away with a feeling of activation, empowerment, or maybe just some tips and strategies to start applying today. If
Yeah.
you are watching and you're looking to join the mission here at Beyond the Game Alliance, there's 3 great ways for you to do that. If you're an athletic director, leader, coach, or parent of student athletes in their junior year of high school and above, you can become a aligned partner with us and allow us to service your athletes comprehensively as they work on that transition beyond the game. If you speak athlete and you have a specific skill set that our athletes need, you can become an aligned provider for our alliance. And lastly, we are always looking to support our athletes in greater capacities, and corporate sponsors allow us to do that. So if you're a business owner with a heart for our athletes and you'd like to be a part of this mission, let's definitely connect. You can learn more about us and ways to give at beyondthegamealliance.org. And if you want to stay in the loop, I also recommend subscribing to our YouTube channel and our social media channels as well. And again, Morganne, thank you so much for joining us today. Until next time.
Thank you.